It began like any ordinary evening in the heart of Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood known for its well-kept lawns and picturesque homes. Families settled in for dinner, porch lights flickered on, and laughter echoed from children playing their final games before the sun dipped below the horizon. But tonight was destined to be different. Tonight, the peace of Maplewood would shatter, leaving scars that would never heal. Samantha Greene, a single mother of two, had just moved into the neighborhood 2 months earlier. She was drawn to the promise of safety, the warmth of friendly neighbors, and the chance to rebuild her life after a difficult divorce. Little did she know, her new beginning would quickly spiral into a nightmare. It all started subtly, almost imperceptibly. The sound of footsteps on the roof late at night, shadows darting across her backyard, too quick and too silent to be animals. The neighborhood children whispered about the man who watches, a figure they claimed to see standing in the woods at the edge of the cul-de-sac. Samantha dismissed it all as paranoia, as childish imaginations running wild. But then came the whispers. Late at night, as Samantha lay in bed, she began hearing faint murmurs just outside her bedroom window. The words were indistinct, carried on the wind, but the tone was unmistakably sinister. She told herself it was just the house settling, maybe the wind rustling the trees. Yet deep down, she knew something was wrong. One evening, as Samantha tucked her youngest, Ellie, into bed, the girl whispered, "Mommy, he's outside my window again." Samantha froze. Her heart raced as she turned to look, but all she saw was her own reflection in the glass. She reassured Ellie it was just her imagination, but the unease in her chest refused to subside. By the following week, Samantha began to notice more unsettling signs. Doors she swore she had locked were found ajar in the morning. Objects in her home were misplaced, though no one had entered but her and her children. And then came the phone calls, heavy breathing, clicks, and silence on the other end. Desperate for answers, Samantha confided in her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Carver, an elderly woman who had lived in Maplewood for over 50 years. Mrs. Carver's face paled when Samantha described her experiences. "There's something you need to know about this place," she said, her voice trembling. 30 years ago, a family vanished from your home. Police searched for weeks, but they found nothing. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, just emptiness. Some say it's cursed. Others think something lives in those woods. Either way, I'd get out if I were you. Terrified but unable to uproot her family again, Samantha decided to stay. She installed security cameras, reinforced her doors, and kept a knife by her bedside. Yet, the sense of being watched never left her. It was a stormy night when everything came to a head. Rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance. The children had gone to bed early, unnerved by the storm's intensity. Samantha sat in the living room, trying to lose herself in a book, when the power suddenly went out, plunging the house into darkness. She reached for her phone to turn on the flashlight. As the dim light illuminated the room, the motion detector in her backyard activated, flooding the area with light. She grabbed the monitor and her heart sank. There he was, a tall, gaunt figure standing perfectly still, his face obscured by a hood. Samantha called 911, her voice shaking as she described the intruder. But before she could finish, the line went dead. Panicking, she ran to her children's rooms. Ellie and her older brother Max were huddled together, their faces pale with fear. "Stay quiet," she whispered, locking the door behind them. The silence of the house was soon broken by a loud crash. Someone, or something, had broken in. Samantha clutched the knife she kept hidden under her bed, her mind racing. She needed to protect her kids. She needed to survive. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow and deliberate. Whoever it was, they were toying with her, letting her know they were coming. As the steps grew louder, Samantha heard a faint tapping on the window behind her. She turned to see another figure standing outside, his face pressed against the glass, his breath fogging the pain. This wasn't just one intruder. There were more of them. She barricaded the door and whispered to Max, "Take your sister and climb out the window. Run to Mrs. Carver's house and don't look back." Max hesitated but obeyed. helping Ellie out onto the roof as Samantha stayed behind to confront the intruder. The door burst open, and there he stood. His face was pale and expressionless, his eyes dark pits that seemed to consume the light. Samantha swung the knife, but he moved with inhuman speed, dodging her attack and pinning her against the wall. "Why are you doing this?" she screamed, her voice breaking. He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned in close, his breath cold against her ear. "You should have left," he whispered, his voice a hollow echo. In a surge of adrenaline, Samantha managed to break free, slashing his arm. To her shock, no blood spilled, just a thick black ichor that smelled of decay. She bolted out of the room, her only thought to escape. Outside, the rain poured harder, masking the sounds of her children's footsteps as they fled through the neighborhood. Samantha ran into the woods, hoping to lose him in the maze of trees. But he was always there, just behind her, his movements unnatural and jerky, as though he were a puppet on strings. The deeper she ran, the darker it became. The woods seemed alive, the trees bending unnaturally, their branches clawing at her skin. Samantha stumbled into a clearing, her chest heaving, her legs burning with exhaustion. Figures emerged from the shadows, men, women, and children, their faces blank and their eyes void of life. They circled her, whispering in a language she didn't understand. One by one, they pointed at her, their expressions twisting into grotesque smiles. And then, as quickly as they appeared, they vanished, leaving her alone with him. He stepped forward, his hood falling back to reveal a face that wasn't human. It was twisted, grotesque, a patchwork of scars and unnatural features. Samantha closed her eyes, expecting the end. But then, a blinding light engulfed the woods. She opened her eyes to see the police, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The figure was gone. Samantha and her children left Maplewood the next day, never looking back. But the nightmares never stopped. The house was eventually sold to another family, who vanished without a trace within a month. And sometimes, in the dead of night, Samantha swears she can still hear his voice, whispering from the shadows, "You should have left."